Good morning. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know it's early um, and Sunday morning of the Wellness Panel. Yay. Peter, thanks for making it. Oh, okay. Food is important, as we all know, right? Well, I'm really, really excited about this group of people here today. I love each and every one of you, and you're so great in what you do, and thanks for coming. I really wanted Lillian here with us today and kind of had a plan and then got thrown for a loop, and I'm really grateful for the way that it fell together. So I'll kind of just go down the line and introduce you all, starting with Miss Dr. Kim Engard, such an incredible healer. Dr. Kim's experience with medicine and the healing arts spans over 30 years. In addition to her naturopathic medical practice, she is an international lecturer, teacher, and master herbalist. She has been spotlighted on Shift Network, Healing Our Earth, and the International Qigong Association, as well as healing and chakra science teachings in the US, Bali, and abroad. She was faculty at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine for 10 years and has taught and been an honorary member of the Environmental Medicine Board, as well as her online teachings for doctors and the public. In addition to her medical practice, she consults with holistic clients worldwide about integrative and natural healing modalities. She is committed to the healing arts and treating the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. She believes the key to healing starts with treating cause to dis-ease and integrates many healing and spiritual traditions in her practice and teachings. More information can be found on her website, drkimengard.com. Yay. All right, Peter. Peter May has been living on the Crestone, in the Crestone area. On the Crestone. I kind of thought you wanted it that way. Okay. Peter May has been living on the Crestone area since 1993. During that time, he has designed and built several passive solar houses and greenhouses, managed and updated 2 of the local fire departments, and provided land stewardship and forest restoration for hundreds of acres using a number of methods, including low-intensity prescribed fire. One of his specialties is utilizing the healing power of local plants, including pinyon pine, Rocky Mountain juniper, and wild oregano. Hi, Arjuna. All right. Thank you, Peter. Jessica Foreman. Jessica Foreman is a storyteller, ritualist, herbalist, and writer dedicated to excavating a more accurate tale of humanity's place, purpose, and potential in the dance of connection that is life. In her work, Jessica approaches the cultivation of health as simultaneously personal, social, and mythic through her handcrafted apothecary, stories, poetic musings, and seasonally available one-on-one sessions. Thanks for being here. Okay. Cassie Morningstar, thank you especially for being here because it was a bit last minute. All right. Cassie is a licensed massage therapist, 3rd-degree Reiki master, and practitioner of traditional energy healing modalities. Born and raised in Denver, Colorado, Cassie first experienced massage as an infant to relieve symptoms of colic. At 7 years of age, she was introduced to Reiki energy work. In Cassie's adult years, she has become a seasoned massage therapist. She has been a meditation guide, women's support group leader, and has been involved in many apprenticeships with spiritual leaders, shaman healers, and educators. Cassie offers a wide variety of massage and energy healing modalities to balance body, mind, and spirit. And last but certainly not least, Miss Arwen. Arwen earned a Master of Science degree from Colorado State University studying botanical medicine, then underwent a 4-year training to become a registered biodynamic craniosacral therapist. She has been doing deep study in Taoist Qigong and Chinese five-element theory while running her clinical practice in Crestone for the last 3 years. I'm sure many of you have gotten wonderful work from her. All right, guys. All great. Kim did me, right? Well, I'm Laura. I'm Laura, Mountain Laurel Apothecary. I'm truly just a plant ambassador and ready to have a place for the plants to live in town. And I will constantly fight for them and their place here. But really, today's about you guys, so. All right, so I really wanted to start off the panel today with a tribute to Lillian McCracken. She was and is an incredible healer, an herbalist, gardener, magician, alchemist, friend of our community for a long, long, long time. I don't even want to try to say the amount of years because I'll probably be wrong. It's probably even longer than I think. And unfortunately, we lost her this summer. And I really wanted her to be here with us today. So I just wanted to open up the stage for anybody to share a story about her, something you wished you could have said to her, learned from her before she passed, a product that you loved, or just a sentimental moment that you shared. Would anybody like to go first?
I would say I have a really cool story about Lillian. And I knew of Lillian because I started my herb business in Salida in '95, and I had a store up there. And I heard about her being down here in the valley, and probably met her a couple times. Didn't know her well back then, but when I was in Arizona, we had the Southwest Herb Conference at Southwest Naturopathic Medical Center. We would host it there. Had a lot of amazing people. Michael Moore, before he passed, and a lot of people in the Southwest, herbalists. We certainly had Mimi Camp, who's still around. He's wonderful. And Phyllis and a lot of other people would come and teach, and still do, in April. And Lillian came one year, but I didn't recognize her. And because I taught at the school, I wasn't teaching at the conference. I was just kind of help host the conference. And I sat in the back of the room during a lecture, and I was sitting next to this woman. I'm like, she looks familiar to me. And I just started talking to her before the lecture started. And I said, oh, where are you from, And she said, Colorado, but you wouldn't really know where it is. And I'm like, try me. And she says to watch, and I go, are you Lillian? Oh my gosh. And we realized we knew each other, and we hadn't seen each other probably in 20 years or something. And it was just a really cool moment, and we got to hang out at the conference a bit. And I hadn't come back to Colorado at that time. And so that was kind of a precious moment for me. We got to talk about plants and spend a little time, even though that we really didn't know each other that well. But it was just kind of one of those fortunistic moments where we could kind of be off, spending time just sharing, I think, part of what Laura wanted to do here today. So thank you, Lillian. I know you're here in spirit, and we love you.
So I met Lillian probably in '94 or '95, and she was the one to go to for astrology readings. And because she was really good. She was really good, and she loved to compare people and how they would get along. And everyone knew that, but there wasn't that many people here then. So it was small. And we'd all sit down and do our charts and compare charts and everything. And what I'm going to miss is the Spilanthes, amongst many other things that she makes. And I'm looking at the store, and they're starting to dwindle because I'm sure there's a little bit left, but it'll be gone soon. So hopefully someone will fill those shoes, maybe on this stage. But yeah, we all miss Lillian.
Thank you. And Tom, excuse me, Tom will surely still continue to grow the Spilanthes, I imagine. I love Lillian. Lillian, I miss you. I pray you're doing well there in the other world. I sought Lillian out when I first moved to Crestone 7 years ago. I was looking for any herbalist to learn from, so of course she had me over, pulled up my chart, started looking into my psyche, and you know, she was a very private person, so we developed a friendship. She's definitely a mentor, an elder, a friend to me. But I feel like after 7 years, she was just starting to maybe be about to invite me in to help her. One other thing about her, I feel, on a collective level, is Lillian, at least to me, and I feel it in the collective field, she was the wise woman at the edge of the wood for all of us, whether you knew her or not. Like, she was in this field holding down a really powerful, connected point for us. So I think she still is in some ways, but I feel that void with her gone now. So love you, Lillian.
So I met Lillian, but I didn't know her very well, and I do enjoy her products. So I'm hoping that some of you can continue that. I wish I would have gotten to know her better, and I know she's here in spirit, and may she rest in peace.
Thank you. Yeah, so I did not have the pleasure of knowing Lillian, unfortunately, but I would just like to acknowledge that our teeny tiny community that is so close-knit has been losing loved ones about every week this year. And I know it's been really hard for a lot of us. And I just, want to acknowledge that I know a lot of us are hurting and feeling the loss, and just remind everybody to, go forward with gentleness and kindness and patience for yourself and for everyone around you who may or may not have lost a lot of friends this year. So yeah, just love this community so much, and yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, guys. I get the magic solo mic. Okay, sounds like it's working, right? Well, thank you for sharing. Okay. Maybe, if that one's better. It's better to have a talking stick anyways. Thank you guys for sharing your stories on her. I feel like just talking about her has like brought her into the field. I kind of have chills. I feel her here, and that's really what I was trying to do. I had an interesting relationship that wasn't even in person with her. When I had first opened the apothecary, I caught word that she was a little bit like, oh my God, who's that? Opening an apothecary without consulting me? And at first I was just like, oh my God, why would somebody be mad at me for this? How could I make this right? What did I do wrong? And in retrospect, I really admire her protection of the medicine, and that she wanted to make sure that the representation of it in this place was correct and honorable. And after some time, I think we both processed it, and I reached out to her to be on the panel, and she responded very happily and wanted to be a part of it with me and us and a part of the shop. And this was only like a week before she passed. So having that final connection and leaving off on a good note means so much to me, and I think for the future of the space and the apothecary and what it can hold, and in honor of her. So thank you, Lillian. We're feeling you here. All right, guys, are you ready to jump into some questions? Okay, Question number 1. In the world of wellness, what do you feel is your biggest gift or offering? Who would like to go first? Would you like the talking stick?
I'll use this one. Yeah, so, it's an interesting question. I would have answered this very differently a few years ago. But right now, what I would say is my greatest gift, and what helps me offer service in healing to the community is my tie to my ancestors, and just, feeling their depth and their commitment and my connection to the root, that goes as far back as time. And just, really trusting the Tao and trusting the ebb and the flow of life. And, when times are really hard and things are really low, we can find the greatest treasures down in the deep dirt. And whether it comes from our ancestors or whether it just comes from us really opening ourselves to the depth and the pain, and loving it anyway. And I find that when I embrace that and I just hold on, there's threads that we can hold on to in the most challenging moments of our life. Excuse me. It's the yerba mate. It gives me the frog voice. What I have found is that when we don't collapse and we don't disappear and we show up for the people around us anyway, we find that they're going through the same thing too. And we all can help each other just by noticing, like, oh yeah, this is what we're going through right now. And it's never just me and it's never just you. It's a collective challenge that we all face because we're all, just floating on the sea of life and facing challenges as they come. And we have our ancestors that built us some kind of boat inside of us that helps us float along. And, we just have to reach out when people are, and show up. I think the biggest thing is to just show up, even if you're having a bad day, because likely it's not even, sometimes when you're really, really open, you can feel other people's suffering. And, and then that camaraderie can be like, oh yeah, man, I feel that too. And let's just, dig deep and find out how to heal from it and, laugh about it together, about how crazy this moment is and feel that we're not alone. And that can be really, really healing, just knowing that we're not alone in our pain. And we can kind of wallow in it like a pig in mud and just get some joy anyway. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay. In the world of wellness, what do you feel is your biggest gift or offering?
All right, my biggest offering, I would say, is opening up my heart and being able to hold space for my clients and friends and family to facilitate their own healing from within. I don't consider myself the healer because the healer is within every single client I work on. So my gift is just the ability to hold that space for that healing to occur and my answer is a lot less lengthy than yours.
Beautiful. Thank you. I know, this is a interesting question to answer for yourself.
Like a game show.
This is a game show. I'm kind of formulating here as I go, but I feel similar in that a lot of it stems from like where I source ancestrally, and you know, the prayers that guide your life, you know, the practices, the prayers that set me up to show up to each day, and and do my best when I'm engaging like with a client or a friend or anyone in interaction. Yeah, really being in the heart, almost being so present, but even stepping out of the personal to be able to kind of step into a more mythical level with people. I think that's a level that a lot of healing comes from, a lot of perspective comes from, this like story myth level. And so I would say my efforts to meet the world at that level, if that even makes sense, and with language. I feel like that's not necessarily something we think of as wellness, but how we're speaking, what we're speaking every single day matters. Like, as I thought about this entire panel, I'm like, wellness, it's like everything is wellness. There's nothing you do at any moment in any day that doesn't affect your wellness. And we talk all the time. And so how we're speaking, the words, but also where they're coming from, like in your body, where they're sourcing from, at what layer of your being, has a huge impact, not only on tuning your own system, but how you're tuning who you're talking to, how you're tuning the field. And so I'm not saying I'm like some expert by any means, but this seems to be kind of like what has arisen in my journey of studying wellness as kind of my area that I'm interested in. And I think there's a lot that we can continue to uncover with our words, our languaging, that can go a really long way in our wellness. And like I said in my bio, like the personal, the social, the collective, the mythic, there's absolutely no difference. They're all interwoven. We're all touching on all those layers all the time. Like even when you're at home alone, just sitting on your couch, like you are in touch with the field. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Jessica. So I think I remember the question.
Want me
And
to
my
repeat it?
biggest gift is that I'm sensitive to life force. And what do we mean by life force? What do I mean? And that's basically, we're talking about language, we're talking about thoughts, feelings, whatever it is. And I think I've been sensitive to that since I was a little kid. And as a guy, that's kind of weird, right? Because guys usually aren't. Or you try to hide that. And so it took me a long time to be able to interpret that. And Crestone, being the landscape that it is allows me and I think many of us to focus on numerous things, to bring that forth. And that life force then comes through, the plants and the minerals and the air and the elements for us to then utilize to help balance. And so that is the challenge, though, for me, is interpreting the life forces and the flow, especially here. And we have such an opportunity because it is so animated and so powered up. People are so passionate that it's like the cartoon is here, and the lines are so big in the coloring book that you can't miss. You just have to start coloring.
It's funny, Peter introed what I was going to say. It's hysterical. And she introed you. See, we're all sharing. That's very cool. I wanted to add to that in that also working in the field of healing for a very long time. I had land here in Crestone back in the late 90s, and actually I came through here in 87. I was quite young, and I had memories here, like a lot of us, that called me here. And so it took me a while for divine timing to be here full time. But this place, as we've talked about and most of you folks know, is a place of healing in traditions, not only Native people, in many traditions, as Eagle Bear said, with the Apaches, Hopi, all the Native tribes, but even going back to Anasazi and the ancient ones, this land is for that. And you can't move to Crestone without healing yourself. So even as a healer, I'm always humbled and honored by that experience, and being able to be a caretaker and a holder of energy for the labyrinth here, which I am now healing at that location, that has its own energy as well. And the Howells and the folks that came before with Sanctuary House and Saima in that location knew that. And they were doing, of course, their own wellness and healing there. And many people have shared amazing stories with me about even this weekend, with, hey, I lived there and I had this experience, or, I birthed a baby there. And so the place is still teaching me about that. And in order for me to do that work, I have to be in a divine space every day. I have to give that energy a chance to work on me, which with Qigong healing and all the other things, yoga, I certainly have done that consciously, but I would say I'm learning it on a new level every day, because the divine nature of the energy that's here to help us be well and be free of dis-ease it's a process, and it just keeps continuing, and things are amping up, but that also means the sky's the limit in healing, and I feel very blessed to be here and be part of that with everyone. So thank you.
Can you guys hear me well enough with this one? I'll just use this one. Thank you, guys. Beautiful, beautiful answers, and I'm just so blown away and impressed by the depth that you all hold in what I thought was such a simple question. Went layers and layers and layers of beauty. Thank you. Okay, question number 2. I was gonna ask, do you want me to answer? Okay. All right. I feel lately my biggest gift and offering is my willingness to power through and work and slave away to create a space for the plants, truly feeling like I'm meant to just hold space and work and serve and create the space for you all to heal and offer. And I'm just like really in this space right now of just like working and serving. And I feel that is like my biggest gift, is my willingness to serve the plants in the world of wellness and the ones around me in the field, and opening up doors for you guys and connections and a space for all of us, and just keeping it wholesome and together, and in honor of the plants and the words that come with the plants and our ancestors and all of that. Thank you all. Okay, question number 2. I don't know. Who's going to want to go first with this one? What do you feel is that very first step that should be taken into wellness? What is the foundation to wellness? Where do you feel is the right place for someone to start?
Very in-depth question. I'm sure it will be covered in great nuance by everyone. I feel the first place to start is spending time alone in the forest. here where we live, these wild beings. You can't not begin to absorb what it is to be rooted and connected and in your nature, and have a chance to just listen to just the perfection out there. I think that's a really important practice.
Looks like it's my turn. So what I would say, and what I'm going to say is to begin, and for myself, and what I would recommend to others is to find an openness. Number one, to pay attention to what's going on, whatever that might be. And for some of us, and for many of us, I think it is going into the forest by ourselves, you know, and just being there. And then once there, being able to perceive or connect with the life forces that are flowing. And then the third thing that I would say, which I want to just offer out, is what actually makes it possible to heal fully. And I think we've been touching on it, and that's the field and allowing the field to generate. And I think we do that with practitioners, we do that with each other, we do that, and that is what kind of guides the life forces. And we can do that in many, many ways, and that's what my passion is right now, is discovering how is that field generated and how is it stabilized.
I'd like to touch a little more on openness, because that's something that keeps coming up with myself and people I'm working with. Even in the body, energy and fields and meridians and nadis, and however we want to look at that, and of course they're all connected, there can be a static, you know, and one of my dear friends, Dr. Alice, she is a counselor and naturopath, but she's been doing it for like 40 years, and she always goes, well, you know, there's fight and fright, and then there's freeze, and we forget that freeze is there as well, and that's static energy. And then there can be, you know, we say in Chinese medicine, not only is the channel maybe depleted of qi or prana, however you want to look at that, there can be, you know, disassociated energy in there. And that openness is huge, right? And we can think about it mentally and emotionally as well, any area. But even in the physical body, you know, I'm still learning every day, like when I have people who have had a lot of stuck energy, say in their sciatic region or, you know, anywhere in the body that's affecting them physically, part of the healing process is removing what doesn't need to be there. And we can say that emotionally and mentally and everything too. But then there's space that occurs. And then things need to adjust to the space, which is tricky because people want to fill the space very quickly, right? We're all hurrying, and this energy and this vibrational energy we're in right now, you know, 4D, however you want to look at that, sometimes when the geomagnetic and the energy is happening, it causes us to be very hurried, myself included, and we just have to like slow it down. And I find that's something that I'm saying a lot to myself and to people that I'm working with, is like, just slow it down as best you can. Sometimes we can't, but I'm very happy to see here at the Energy Fair, and maybe the rain helped with this. Of course, it slowed us up to get started, but it slowed us down, that nurturing energy that we talked about with fungi and everything, the holding the water, and water holds space and energy, and then it vibrates that. But that holding space for each other, I think Jessica was saying that with words, but also holding space in yourself and honoring that space is okay. You don't have to fill it right away. And that's something I think is really important, and how the body works, because we want good energy and good things to come into that space, right? Without judgment. But sometimes you don't know. You know, sometimes you need to sit with what is wellness for you, and that can be in the forest, like you said, and being with nature that is teaching you about space and animals, you know. And the other day I was walking trying to get ready up at the retreat center because we had our first guest, a Southwest dancer, who stayed with us, and this deer just popped up, and it just looked at me with those deer eyes, you know, like holding it, and I go, oh, hi, and I just took a minute to have space, you know, and I don't know, I just wanted to share that part.
Okay, so everything I want to say was basically said, but to simplify, to begin with wellness, I feel that so many of us are in this hustle and bustle of life, and we're just going from one thing to the next and not really living in the moment. So to start, you want to tap in and tune into the energy within your physical body and all around you. And the way that I do that is by doing earth ceremonies, connecting to earth and all the energies around in the soil, in the trees, in the plants, and just even in the air. There's energy all around that is not separate from what's within us. So that's where I would begin.
Okay. Thanks, guys. That was all really beautiful. So for me, I would say that the foundation of healing and where to start is to recognize that healing is not a place or a destination. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery and, you know, and embarking on an immense love affair with life and the divine. And that, you know, to say that there is no end to healing is not to say that you'll never feel better, but just to say that there's always deeper to go in the enjoyment and the appreciation of life and the experience of our bodies feeling well. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
Great. Thank you. I would say that my answer is a whole lot of what you all said, but most importantly, what was coming to me is the foundation, or where to start is to start exactly where you are and to tap into that openness, as was mentioned, and that understanding that like you're not separate, you are one, and to just accept where you are. And like that acceptance of where you are is such an incredible foundation for the path of healing that you can walk on from there on, and that in itself is incredibly healing. So thank you. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. Maybe get a little more technical. From your perspective, what are the pros and cons of allopathic medicine?
Okay, so I was raised with herbs with my mom, and I remember spraining my ankle, and we go out to the garden that my brother planted, and there was comfrey there, and so we made the comfrey tea in the bucket, and I let it cool, and I put my ankle in there, and didn't have any idea what was going on. I just trusted, and then the next day I could go out and play. And so the next time I sprained my ankle, I went out to the garden and did it myself. And that's when it healed me again overnight. And mainly my thing was about being able to play. You know, I didn't want to sit in the house and not play. And so that set my perspective or perception as a kid. I might have been about 7 or 8 or 9, who knows. And if that plant can heal that way, can other plants heal? And I haven't even touched the allopathic word yet. But my brother went on to become a naturopath, you know, like Kim. They know each other, they're friends and colleagues. And I got to go to my brother's classes at Bastyr. And being raised with my mom and herbal medicine, it was in me, like, of course, and everyone knows this. And I'd go to camp and I'd going, no one knows this. No one knows that the plants heal. And people had other remedies, over the counter and other medications. The biggest thing from this perspective is that it seems like it's a recipe that may or may not be appropriate. You know, allopathic is introducing symptoms that are counter to the ones you're having, correct? And it doesn't often even get to know the individual there. It's just like, and that could be true of naturopathic too, but it's even more so, like it's removed from our experience. We can't go out and make those medicines. You know, with plant medicine, we can begin to understand and then seek the people that are really experienced. And I think other cultures did that with shamans and like Tibetan medicine type people and people that brought in the different dimensions. So also there's money behind it, and we know where their money goes. Not that money's bad, it's just, it's all for the profit and not caring. And I've seen that in my own family when they've chosen that, is like, just get them through and then get their insurance, and then who cares what happens. So that's my own, it's my own experience. Who wants to go next?
Well, I have an interesting perspective on that because I worked in a hospital for a long time that didn't start before I was an herbalist. So I was an herbalist and also was a paramedic and a cardiorespiratory therapist. I worked at the Heart of the Rockies. I was a trauma coordinator. So I've worked alongside allopathic medicine for a long time. I was planning to go to regular med school out of high school, but I was already doing plant medicine, and I thought, that's not really going to integrate what's important to me with the plants. And having worked with plant medicine from my early teens, I just found this like dichotomy that didn't resonate together. And so I didn't go to allopathic med school. I didn't become a brain surgeon, although I work with brain stuff a lot, with neurology. But I think there can be a union of this because, I have great colleagues in the allopathic world that do want to help people, and they do help people. What Peter said is true, and I've seen this even in the herbal world as well. I think it's a human condition of profit and aggrandizement to get caught up in that. We as human beings tend to do that. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that you can't patent an herb. You can patent a group of herbs, and companies try to do this. And I think that's a great thing, actually. I've had people come into my herb store and literally start writing down years ago my recipes and not even buy anything and be like, oh, I like your thing, I'm going to go make it and sell it. And so it doesn't mean just because you're working in natural medicine that you're not susceptible to that mentality, right? And that kind of took me aback, when that happened many years ago, and I saw that. But I think there's a place for it as long as we're all coming from a pure intention. And there's a place for, setting a bone, although there's holistic ways to do that as well, and maybe better ways. I mean, I worked with bone setters that studied in Japan, and, traditional, there's not too many of them in this country, but that's really magical. But I think that the greatest gift that I've seen is seeing allopaths see how natural medicine works and make that connection. And I think that we all can encourage that. And I always encourage my patients too, because I work with a lot of very sick people from around the world as well as things in the community. So I have to integrate if I really want to help people. And I always encourage them to share what they're experiencing with their allopathic doctors and people in their world, because some of those people need healing too. And they're very frustrated with what's going on, with the control that's going on. And I have supported people with insurance, but I don't take it up front, even though, especially in other states, I could. Um, but, and I don't want to be controlled by that. And I'm very thankful for being able to practice the way I do. But even people in my own profession, I'm also a Chinese medicine doc, but, you know, with the naturopathic, it has so many sides to it. But really treating cause no matter what you're doing, you know, getting to the heart of what's really happening and making the connection. And I think we can do that to try to heal people in the allopathic world. And some people won't want to do that. But there is a time you have to treat symptoms. And I've done that homeopathically on the ambulance, in the ER, you know, and taught students about that. I remember running, and I'm sorry I'm getting loquacious here, but taught students when I was teaching, and we had some urgent borderline emergencies, you know, blood sugars 500, you know, postpartum infections, serious stuff. And we use natural medicine for that. But having the knowledge of all of that makes it work, you know, and being present, of course. But there's a place for all of it. I think we just have to encourage the healing of that and not the profit and the manipulation that can occur.
Do I get another? I would just say that, yes, bringing them together, and especially in emergency situations, you know, being a responder for the last, I don't know how many years, we've seen obviously the benefit of medicine and always, in all ways. So bringing them together, I think, is the key.
That's great. I know you said so many good things. Right, like there's a place for everything under the sun. But I think it's really important that we can see the picture clearly, you know, like even in the world today, allopathic medicine is referred to as traditional medicine. I think that's really strange. It's not. It's the newer branch with an older root, which is when all of our grandmothers, all of our mothers knew all the plants in the yard, you know, and in the surrounding areas. And then if they couldn't help you when you had something going on, you would go to another expert in the community, or you would travel further. And there was this specialized knowledge rooted in the land. Like the medicine comes from the land, from the water, from the relationship. That is our tradition as people, as human beings. Like that's where we come from. That is the root. And unfortunately, in this kind of modern myth of allopathy is all, it has its place. I'm grateful for it, but it's not the whole story. It's kind of severed from a root in a way. I'm sure there's plenty of doctors out there who honor, you know, the ones who came before them and know, like, didn't chemists branch from alchemists? I mean, there's always an older tradition before. And so it's kind of part of that, like, that story. It's a false story. I'm grateful for allopathic medicine. Like, I've been to the hospital. I was very grateful for the technology and even certain medicines at certain times for certain things, but everything needs to be in its place and kind of seen for what it is. And yeah, honoring just back to that root. Like, it's all comes from a root. It's not a severed tail. Yeah.
I still don't.
So I have an interesting perspective on allopathic medicine in that it has been a necessary step on the path of discovery in our collective growing up as a species. It was an interesting chapter, and noticing I'm saying was, where we went down this path of like real curiosity without trust. It's like, we spent a really long time with trust in this sort of yin feminine space, and then we all were kind of like, well, let's go into the masculine and the yang and really, see what that is without this trust and really discover outside of us and rip things apart, rip apart the plants and our bodies and kind of see inside and see all the details in their separateness. And we learned a lot from that. And it is not something that we need to throw away completely. It's given us a lot of information. But it is now time to use what we learned by dissecting everything and investigating all the separate components and put them together again and see, you know, how they actually work synergistically is way more complicated, okay? And so it's just, we're now adding another layer of complexity, which is challenging. And I think we're up to the challenge that, you know, looking at plant medicine and looking at, you know, physical medicine with our bodies, it's now about taking all of that separateness and looking at it and how it moves together, which, yeah, it takes a lot of attention to detail. And knowing all of those pieces really, really helps. So we take all that information and we move into the next layer and, you know, using the imaging technology that we have with, you know, the robots is very useful. However, we made them in our image, and in fact, we will discover, and some of us are already discovering, that our nervous system has a much greater capacity to magnetically image what's going on in our bodies in a much more precise and accurate way. And it's much more 3 and 4 dimensional than you know, MRIs and X-ray technology can see. And when we're able to drop in to our bodies and witness them in that way, we notice that, you know, surgical procedures are limited. And in fact, our bodies made all of these pieces, and they know how to build them again and maintain them. We just have to remember that and tap into the part of ourself that is responsible for repairing and rebuilding parts of our whole. So yeah, if my arm gets ripped off, I'm definitely gonna try to go get it sewed on at the doctor. But beyond that, I'll probably be doing some other stuff. You know, so yeah, sewing is always necessary. That's all I have to say. Cassie, did you?
I can.
So to add to what Arwen was saying, I've seen something happening in the last few years that's really cool, and where someone either is working with healing and then they have some scan set up, and you know, I as a naturopathic doctor, I can order scans as well and train to read them. But that might be happening with another practitioner, and they're pain-free, or they're feeling the healing process that's occurring, and then we get the scan and it's behind the energy that's occurring, right? Because like you were saying, that energy is happening really at a different frequency, and that's not to put technology down. Of course, there's great, amazing healing technologies that are coming with sound waves and light therapy and things that are really advancing at the speed of light more than some of older technologies. But it's really cool to see that healing is happening at a different vibrational level. And it's really good for, I think, patients in my case to see that, because they're experiencing that healing, they're experiencing that process in their own body and feeling the shift. And then sometimes when they get technology done, it's usually always, even if it's representational 3 months before of what they're at in the moment, which is usually it catches up at some point, But they're like learning to honor, I think as Jessica was saying too, like honor what is really happening for them and not being limited by something else. You know, it's good information. And that came up in my world with a kind of serious diagnosis with someone where, and this is what I love about what I do, is that when it's truth, science is also going to support, and I use science, science just means pursuit of knowledge, right? But I mean science in the way it's used in our culture, that it will still support truth if it's pure in its intent, whether it's a scan or whatever. So I don't really worry about it. I'm like, well, we could do the test, you know, if you'd like. Or, you know, some people get really attached to that because they have fear. And sometimes it is necessary to do that. But you don't have to be concerned or fearful because healing itself will show the result in those things. And I just find that's a wonderful opportunity for myself, the patient, as well as the other practitioners and people involved to see what's really happening and have that experience. And it's really powerful. It's super powerful. And it's really cool to watch like the change and the dynamics of how that's happening for people. So.
Cassie, would you like me to go first? I can go. Give you okay. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry for this question because I really do feel like this is a really important topic and I wanted to touch on it today with everyone. And I agree with everything that everybody's saying. And for me, it's something that recently came up in my life in the last couple of years. I'm kind of similar to you, Peter, where I grew up in Crestone. So I was almost, I felt like programmed in a way where it was like allopathic medicine is bad. I don't want that in my life. I don't want that in my world. I have nothing to do with it. So when I was pregnant and going to have my daughter, I was dead set on home birth. That's the only way for me. Nothing else could possibly happen. So of course, Spirit had another plan for me. And in that, I was planning to go to the doctor one time just to get proof of pregnancy. And I found a doctor who was amazing. And she recommended craniosacral therapy. And she wanted to be a part of my home birth. And she was someone just in the system in Alamosa that I felt so connected to that I decided to keep seeing her. I was blown away. I was like, how could this be? I never thought I would find a doctor like you. So as my birth came along, I ended up needing to go to the hospital. And I was able to birth with her. And that experience was so profound for me because at first I was like processing a lot of grief in that my birth didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. But then realized that actually the balance of having my midwife there and my beliefs in and being held by a doctor in an allopathic world that was also an open doctor was so healing and exactly what I needed, and everything went right and my birth went great. And I felt more held than I had ever felt in my life. And it was that balance of the allopathic with my belief in and the natural. And I really think that bridging them together is the answer, and that there is a place for all of it. And, you know, every prescription medication is rooted from a plant. It's an isolated chemical from a plant. So it is together already. It's just the intention behind it. And of course, yeah, I agree with the money-driven aspect of allopathic medicine in that it can also be in all aspects of medicine, but I feel like it is very amplified in allopathic medicine in that there's just a few people profiting from it and not everybody. And it's very symptom-based. For minor symptoms, of course, it's like you're bleeding out, let's treat that symptom. Your arm's cut off, let's treat that symptom. But for minor symptoms that need to be treated for more in a holistic way, it is hurting people more than healing them. And being able to awaken people to that reality and like knowing, look at yourself at a whole, not just take this pill for this symptom to temporarily feel minorly better, not, okay, yeah, I'm gonna die if I don't take this, but the minor symptoms that we just wanna patch up to go about our day-to-day lives instead of healing as in a whole. That to me is a problem, and I wanna help find a way to bring that to attention in this world, so. Okay, I'm done. Wanna go, or should we go to the next question? Okay. Yes.
This is just a little story. So I was working in ICU in Phoenix a number of years ago, and we were kind of like a chronic ICU, and so we had about 17 people on ventilators mostly. You know, it's pretty critically ill patients, and we had, and you guys probably have stories like this, maybe not in ICU, but we had a pretty large population in that area from the Dene Res, from Navajo land, and Navajo medicine man, because there was a native person there passing, and I kind of had to facilitate a lot of passing of people, taking them off the ventilator. They would wait for me to come on shift and say, oh, let Kim do the death process thing, which I was a great gift. But in this situation, it was at night, and the medicine man came to do a blessing on the person who was passing, and we got to watch all of the monitors, all the people who were unconscious, mostly patients, just totally their vitals leveled out. They relaxed if their blood pressure was up or their pulse rate during that process. And there were separate rooms, but that energy to just facilitate that process in an allopathic setting was still so dramatically affecting everyone who was there, the patients that were there, and us who were working as well. And it was really cool to see some of the nursing staff and other people just go like, what's happening, you know? And most of them had an awareness, but it was just really magical that even in a setting like that, healing can occur like that. So I just want to share that story.
Ooh, I love how juicy this is getting. Yes, say more.
So I just wanted to say another thing, kind of extending my answer and what Laura was saying, is that, this tendency to treat a symptom and taking it as just that and separating it from everything else that's going on in their life and what's gone on in their past and what happened to their ancestors and what's going on in the culture is just, it's childish at this point. And it's time to put our big girl pants on and grow up a little bit and start to look at, well, okay, why are they having that symptom? What else is going on? Is it caused by something that happened 30 years ago that was never resolved in their system and has now built and built and built and is so off kilter that now there's this symptom over here that seems totally unrelated, but in fact, if you dig a little deeper and you look at all of the pieces together, you'll find out what the root cause is. And then, if you deal with the root cause, all of the other stuff, the peripheral symptoms go away on their own, which you would never get if you just treated that symptom that was caused by their trajectory being off course for 30 years and not actually part of the real problem. So that was what I wanted to say.
Okay, one last thing is I feel like it's really important to remember our voices when we're in a situation with allopathic medicine, and to remember it's okay to advocate for yourself and say when something feels good or doesn't feel good. And I definitely did that when I was in the hospital. And I remember that all the nurses, I was like the topic of the day in the hallways. They're like, this patient, But I was like, this is really good for them. And they did honor me in everything that I said, and I was very clear. And when you have your voice, it's like, they're kind of like, okay. and that is going to help ripple into those systems, that it's okay for people to have a voice and a say in the structures that they're so used to, but it can be slowly broken down. And yes, Peter?
Can I add something too now?
No, just kidding.
Thank you. All right. So one of the stories and one of the gifts of allopathic is the ability to measure and to pay attention and to do tests and all these things, and then to use that as a basis to see if things are actually healing on that dimension. And like Kim said, if it's true, it's true. And it's gonna show there. And we've had people use one of the resins from this plant to basically cure skin cancer. And the biggest dilemma was, what were they going to tell their doctor? How did you do that? And that's kind of the realms we're getting into now, is like, what do you say when a miracle happens? At least a miracle to them. Just to other people, it's like, well, of course it does that, because we know it does. But it's just using it in its strength and making it part of the team. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. How are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. Let's lighten things up. Okay. What is one thing in your daily routine that is non-negotiable for your personal wellness? Is that lighter?
I can answer this one. Non-negotiable is my morning routine. So I have to do my meditation, and if it's a workout day, I have to do my workout. If I don't get it done in the morning, then it happens before I go to bed if I can't get it done sometime during the day. But if I miss that in the past, my immune system suffers and my mental health suffers, and I have a 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old child that I have to keep up with. So those are the non-negotiables. I need to stay hydrated and energized for my kiddo. So I don't know.
So my non-negotiable routine is that I don't need a routine. What's non-negotiable for me is to always check in with my body and say, well, what do I want? Do I want to sleep in? Do I want to hydrate today? Do I want to whatever feels right in the moment and whatever the Tao is presenting me with, and trusting my body. And this is what I tell all my clients when they say, oh, well, what should I do after the session? What can I do today? What do you recommend? And I just say, do what feels good. If you feel like going for a walk, go for a walk. If you feel like taking a nap, take a nap. If you feel like running to the top of the mountain, fantastic. Like, just do whatever feels good, and like take the moment to really check in with my body with every new opportunity that presents itself. As a quadruple Libra, this is how I make decisions. Because it can be really challenging, because I'm taking everything into account. And the most important thing that I have found is, what do I want to do? What makes my heart feel happier? When I look at the options and I look at how I need to be today, like, what is nourishing to my heart? And that's all that matters. And I have found that this has been wildly successful for me and all of my clients that do this too. So yeah, that's my routine, is to not have a routine, but to always do what my heart wants to do.
Honoring your needs.
I like that, Arwen. That's my style. I can be similar, though I am trying to work on building a more disciplined space in my life as well. But I do think it's so important, like, what brings you joy? What do you need that day, in that week, in that season? It can change through the seasons, and that's kind of how I'm navigating now, trying to look at, like, yeah, I'm not just a separate person like me. I'm me in this location, in this season. What do I need? What do I want to practice right now? So oftentimes, well, my non-negotiable is definitely like looking in my son's eyes and telling him I love him. I think that's a really important piece of health connection. Oftentimes it has to do with lighting an incense and greeting the spirits, greeting the land, saying good morning, saying thank you. On really good days, I'm singing songs on my front porch to the sun. Again, these are things that I think really have an incredible health benefit, and just a benefit to back to the me, my environment, and the collective field. Of course, hydration and all those good things, but also I'll bring in probably almost every day making a little plate for my ancestors, because I don't think it's symbolic. Like when we feed the spirits, I think like we feed the spirits and they feed us. It's feeding the whole field. And I think that can go a really, really long way. Ancestrally, or some being out in nature that we feel connected to. I really had a significant experience when I was just starting to make offerings, where I think just like the veils thinned a little and I was allowed to glimpse, like I made this offering and I could feel literally the invisible field like suck it up. I've never experienced that again. That was like a gift to be able to perceive that, but I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget how far offerings go.
I think checking in with your heart, Arwen, is an amazing thing, and also saying hello or good morning. What I do every day is a practice where I'm saying hello to the space and the life force and the field, and I do practices that support that. I happen to do the Tibetan life force yoga, is called Salung, and a number of us do that here. And I think you can also gain that by Qigong and Tai Chi, provided you're doing it effectively. And that has changed my life. One quick story about that is when I learned them in 2000, I went from only learning about plants effectively from people and books to them communicating with me directly by doing those yogas. And that's kind of a crazy thing that I put together. And since we're in Crestone, which is where it happened, here's a little story. I was skiing at Monarch, and it was a big powder day. And when it's a big powder day, you don't come in. And at that point, we didn't wear helmets. So I was wearing a hat, and the hat was a little small for me, and it kept riding up on me, but we never came in all day. And so that means, and it was a cold snow, it wasn't warm. And so I telemark, and it was the best day ever, right? So I get back, and I'm in town, or I'm back at my house, and I'm going, why are my ears itching, right? Why are my ears itching? And I look at the mirror, and it's like, oh, they're kind of white, but they're okay. But why are they itching? But I can't feel them, that's not good. So I go downtown to the hardware store, and someone sees me, and they go, so why are your ears black? Like, my ears are black. I've been checking. How come I don't know? And I look in the mirror in my truck, and it's like, my ears are black. She's going, you're having a cold weather emergency, and you need help right now. And so inside my head, I'm going, what am I going to do, right? I go, what? And all of a sudden, the plants respond. And the pinyon and the juniper got together, and they told me exactly what to do. I went home and did it, and it had to do the resin and the oils. And within 2.5 days, the black's gone and all the feeling's back. So that's just, when we really tune in, we're in a place where things are available. It's so potent here if we can just find the gateway. And sometimes it's so much we just like, it's too much. But when it's the right time and the right question, and our practices have helped us open and stabilize, miracles happen. And here's Kim, because I know she has many stories like that.
I'll try not to tell too many. For me, it would be trust. And it kind of plays into the fact that we're not alone in the journey. And And I say that in a divine way because that's my level of commitment. And I'm sure the people here as well, and many of you. But I mean, I have to remind myself that there's enough time and it's divine timing, and all the things that I might be being called to do at any time, that there'll be enough energy for that if I'm just listening and present. And so, of course, that plays into my practices, which I share with probably many people up here, you know, with Qigong and Salung and working with life force, and all those things are greatly important. But sometimes, like Arwen said, I'm not going to do it. I might just go sit out on the patio at the retreat center and just listen to the birds for 5 minutes because that's all I have, right? And that's enough. So that's what's important to me.
Is everyone done? Thank you. I loved all those answers, and I've always, having like a daily practice has been something I've been struggling with in my life, as like kind of on the younger, more chaotic end of life. I feel like I'm stepping into more of that time where I feel like I want more structure in my day-to-day. And I've always admired people who are like, I wake up and I meditate, and if I don't get it done, I'll get it done before the end of the day. And I'm just like, I want to be like that. But I'm a Pisces and I'm not, and I'm usually a mess. But my one non-negotiable that I have been doing for a while now, and I feel has really improved my health, is requiring myself to have a very nourishing meal at least once a day. Like, just for me, it's usually local meat or liver and vegetables and broth and something just really nourishing, or my chicken eggs, something hearty, and that gives me the sustenance for my day to get done what I need to get done, to allow myself to be calm enough to trust that I have enough time to do everything that I need to do, and be well fed enough to get it done. So yeah, food, that's my non-negotiable. Should we wrap it up? Should we open up questions to people? Do we have time for that? Maybe one question. Does anybody in the crowd have a question for us, or anybody on this stage? Anyone? Okay. Great. Do you have a question?
So while we're waiting for the question to be translated, my band will be playing, at least part of the band will be playing at 4 o'clock at the Wellness Village. Oh yeah, I'm promoting myself, Kim. But the reason I'm doing it, not just for my band, because who knows what we'll play. Whether it's going to be a tree or a rock or whatever. But that's not the point. Today we're going to set up, we're going to feed one of the trees down there and invite it to be supportive of healing. We're finding that when we feed the trees, they become supportive in the healing process, and we're going to trigger it and create a little healing forest with the mother tree food and 528 hertz. And so it has been really helping people. So I'll be down there. I'm not sure what will happen, but you're all invited.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, Roberta had a really great question, and I'm sorry if I don't say it exactly as you worded it, but I'll say it in my words. She said there's a motto that is physicians heal. Okay, I'm not going to do it. But heal thyself. In your practices, how much do you feel the reflection of your patients healing you? I hope I did.
100 million%. You know, that is one of the ones we adopt. I'm not trying to promo naturopathic doctors in any way, but many years ago, when I was in the beginning of the profession, they were trying to come up with the tenets for naturopathic doctors, and there was really good intention with this. And that's a tricky thing to do. It's like herding cats, as we say, because naturopathic doctors do all kinds of things, and they don't want to be herded like Crestone. We don't want to be herded into, we just do this or that. And one of them is docere, doctor is teacher, and one of them is, what you just said. And so I would just say that how can you not look at everyone who walks in the door as a lesson, even a lesson for me to say, do I want to do this with this person? I have that choice too, right? And it's not that that's been a problem, but it's just honoring that I don't have to fix or heal everyone. I know that they're doing it themselves. I'm not taking that away from them. But I also have a choice to say, is this in divine province for me? How am I integrating with this? I'm here, I'm present. What is my role in that? And I've had people come, and Crestone's an interesting place, and spend an hour just telling me what they're doing and why they're doing it. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and this is why I take that, and this is why I do that. And in those moments, it's like, okay, Kim, what is your place here? To listen. Person needs to be heard. And then also I turned to them in one situation and said, would you like my opinion on what you're doing and taking? And the person just kind of sat back, like kind of amazed. And they're like, well, they had to think about it. They're paying me to be there. They're paying me for my opinion. But the healing was them being heard, is what I learned from that. And then they were like, yeah, actually, I would like that. I said, okay, let's talk about this a little bit together, right? So it's always that experience, and I came to Crestone full-time a few years ago, and I was in retreat for 3.5 years, not complete every day, but long periods of time. And I took on a medicine Buddha vow to take on healing and transmute that for people, and that's a great responsibility. And I don't always know what's coming in my door, I don't know what my place is with that moment. So just being present, and it's a constant teaching to learn what I need also in the process of being part of that. So thank you for that question.
I've noticed in my practice that I attract the same types of ailments or issues that people are going through based on my own vibration. So yes, the sessions that I enter into with people are just as much healing for me, if not more, because I'm attracting things that I'm working on, and people are coming in to facilitate healing for those exact same things. I noticed about 8 or 9 years ago, I kept getting a theme of the day. People would come into my practice for massage or energy work, and they would talk about the same exact thing while they're on my table or in my session room. And some person would come in with a hurt shoulder, and they would equate that to some trauma that happened to them when they were a child. And somehow it would tie into whatever I was working on internally at the time. So I would say absolutely I get just as much healing as my clients do.
Beautiful. I feel like it's helpful to change out the word heal, because it's not necessarily like broke and healed continuum. I it's actually been coming up for me this week a lot, this thinking, you know, it's not like we're just these bodies, these hunks of meat, you know, and then you go in and sew it up and it's done. It's like we're instruments. We're instruments trying to play our best song, and we're constantly needing tuning, being tuned, falling out of tune. So when it comes to working with someone, it's a tuning, and I think the greatest ideal is to come like into this coherence, and it's not one person doing it to the other. Like when you truly meet in that field with that intention, and it's right in that moment, a coherence comes in, so it affects both of you, or all of you, or even all of us in this moment together, sitting here, you know. So I definitely am grateful to receive beautiful healing coherence benefits from people I work with, and it's beautiful.
And I think it depends on the level of engagement. Some people will come into an office and they're just kind of like more in the conceptual realm, and they just kind of like, oh, of course you do this, and they're not really engaged. And we compare that to what we're talking about here, where we're actually maybe sharing a field, and we're working on it ourselves. And so here's an example. When we go up high, and I guide here, and people get altitude sickness, what we found is that use of the life force yogas, the Tibetan, the Salung, we will put someone who has altitude sickness in the middle of a number of us doing. And what happens is each of the yogas is relative to one of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space. And we're basically building a field so that they can remember how to do it themselves. And it's the craziest thing because it works. And you know, being a guide and knowing the Western approach, meaning come down, make sure you've got plenty of water and food. You know, if you're looking at that or hoping someone get back to normal quickly, instead of having to evacuate them, if you all know, you know, to search and take someone out of the mountains takes about 14 people. And it's far better to get them back on their feet, if you can, in a non-invasive way, using this. And so it's something that we want to start sharing more and more and more because it's having real effects. And as we do it for them, we're also doing it for ourselves, which is the point.
So the statement, healer, heal thyself, I think what it really stems from is someone asking, can you hold my trauma? Are you able to stand in the turbulence of what I'm going through and help me? Like, really? You know, it's a question, like, can you do it? And I think it's an important question. And you know, what I tell a lot of other practitioners who come to me for you know, craniosacral sessions, and they, you know, they kind of have a little bit of shame around their own wounds and how much wounding they have been having to grapple with in their life, is I tell them that no one ever became a healer because they had an easy life. In the old world, children who had a very hard birth or a near-death experience at a very young age were the ones who were set apart to be the healers. Because when we go through challenges and we find the medicine inside ourselves or outside of ourselves, we are then able to share that medicine with others around us. And there's really, like I said, you know, healing is a lifelong journey. And when we find medicine and we share it with others, their discovery of that gives us more clues to deepen our own healing. And really, as practitioners, we are doing it for ourselves, because being in service and helping other people is wildly healing. And it's just kind of like this crazy world and the dichotomy of this world that, you know, being really humble and being in service is the most self-serving thing that you ever could do. So I think that's all I have to say about that.
Lovely. Are we really done on time, Kim? We're good? Okay. I'll keep mine short and sweet at that. I would say the most healing I've ever received in my life have been my years in which I've been in my shop and waiting for each and every mirror to walk in and reflect back at me exactly what I need to do and work on myself. Because I'm like, wow, you need that? I need that too. All right, let's go do it. All right. We're done, I'd say. Thank you guys so much. That was so fun. That was a juicy one.